Laura, give us the Munster final and the Leinster final. Who's going to be in it?
I think it's going to be Tipp and Limerick in the Munster final, and in the Leinster final, I'm actually confused who's a chance of getting into it. and you can print that.
Hello and welcome to Corbett and McGrath's Big Build-Up, brought to you by Centra. I'm Conan Doherty. This is Sports Joe's hurling show. Tactical analysis, highlights, key battles, everything you want. And these two are two of the finest brains in all of hurling in all of Ireland. Derek, I believe you ran into Laura at the weekend.
Yeah, in the guise of Marcelo Bielsa, the Leeds manager, yes. Re-referencing the whole Spygate issue, yeah. I happened to be lucky enough to be down watching Fail and Gale over the weekend. Lara was down with his beloved Thurles Sarsfields. I was down with my own club, De La Salle, and I met the bow Lara on the bank there, not necessarily watching Thurles Sarsfields, but watching De La Salle.
Yeah, I arrived in, I said, Derek, are you here doing the same job I'm doing? So I thought he was spying on Thurles. He said, no, he said, I watched my young lad inside playing corner forward. Well, I said, I got a job from Thurles to come down, but don't go to the Thurles match. So we were to watch De La Salle, write down the notes, hand them to the manager, and find out. But we didn't win the final, so I'm not going to take all the responsibility, but I'll take some of it.
Did you have the binoculars or anything? Because you're a pretty big name to be going to the side of the pitch.
The Thurles supporters were passing me, saying, Larry, you're not going up watching? As it's under 14. I said, no, I'll be up in a few minutes.
But we don't take it too seriously, you know?
Yeah.
We don't take it too seriously.
Well, if you have any questions for the two lads at any stage, leave us a comment on YouTube or get involved in the conversation on Twitter with hashtag Corbett and hashtag McGrath. As you're lighting the place up online, you should see it. Those hashtags are coming in thick and fast. As a result, over the weekend, they've blown the provincial championships wide open. They said the hurling was petering to a standstill, and then suddenly, bang, everything's wide open coming into this last couple of rounds, or this last round, of the round robin. So how do you see it at the minute?
Yeah, I think Galway's performance is probably the standout performance in terms of their form up to that had been, fairly poor, if you like, performances against Wexford and Carlow, where they were questioning themselves. A week beforehand, they went to Carton House. It looked like they got everything right in terms of their whole approach, huge amount of intensity they brought to it, and Carl Mannion's performance to stand out. So their performance could act as a catalyst to perhaps bigger performances down the line.
Yeah, and we're not going to go into all the permutations here because there's so much that it'll make your head hurt. But thankfully, Niall McIntyre has done a great piece on the website. So if you do want to get it straight, just go to sports.joe.ie, type in Hurling Championship, and you'll find it there. Permutations piece, everything you want to know, it's all there. Pause the video, come back to us, and then we'll get to it. But on Saturday, right, so we'll run through it here. On Saturday, we have Wexford v Kilkenny, and we have Dublin v Galway. And in the Munster Championship, the one that's not performing as well as the Leinster Championship right now. Hate to say that, lads. We have Tipperary against Limerick and Clare against Cork.
That's just in your opinion that you think that. So as a Munster man, I'm not going to agree. But yeah, we're looking, the big game the weekend is just, it's Tipp and Limerick. Tipp are not through to a Munster final. Limerick are not through either. This is going to be a very interesting one. Are Tipp going to show their strong hand the weekend? Are they going to put out their best team? I'm not too sure. I think that Liam would like to know a little bit more about maybe his subs bench.
Yeah.
I think that he's going to maybe make a couple of changes. That's my prediction, to know exactly who he does have, because he's going to need a panel when he's going to Croke Park. I think he's going to need one or two guys with a little bit more experience coming off the subs bench when it does go to Croke Park.
Well, if Tipp are absolutely flying at the minute, is that down to just the magic of Liam Sheedy? Because I know you've got obviously fond memories of Liam.
Yeah, Tipp are flying at the minute. But I think the one question that we have to ask each other is that this time last year, coming into the last round of the leagues, or the last round of the Munster Championships, I can't remember too much of it. This is just a means to an end. So all the talk about Tipp, it's going to be a thing that Liam and the management team won't be that happy with, because every other manager is scrutinising the Tipperary setup, their forwards, their midfielders, their backs. How are you going to counteract this? So that's going to be another, I won't say a stumbling block for the Tipperary manager, but it's going to be another thing they're going to have to watch out for. If they put out their best team on Sunday, again Limerick, as Derek, we spoke about off camera already, just say it's one more advantage you might be handing to an opposition manager come maybe to the Munster final.
Yeah, for me, it's a fine balancing act, really. Momentum, in terms of what they're bringing, how they're playing. do you risk that, the loss of that, if you like, in terms of a poor performance? The catalyst or the advantage of a poor performance might be the stick that he wants to beat him with in the long term. You know, go back to 210 even, you know, when they're beating McCork down the park early in the Munster Championship. You have that kind of motivational factor. The balance should probably err on the side of maintaining the momentum with possible blips along the way, even down to the whole possible matchups, you know, possible kind of permutations that exist. The likelihood is with Tipp scoring average that regardless of the result, they nearly have 1 foot in the Munster final. So he has that kind of leeway in terms of how he can approach it. Will he throw a Jake Morris in, you know, into the mix? Will he mix the forwards in some way? Will he even play guys perhaps out of position and with a view to if they met Limerick again down the line? But it's a fine balancing act between being too smart and too clever and ruining the momentum that they've kind of built up already.
Do you know what they say on just say last year? You have a Ger Brown. He got Hurler of the Year under 21 last year. I would like to know what do we have? Have we a potential midfielder? Have we a potential replacement midfielder if things don't go right? If you get an injury later on in the year, and as a Jake Morris, who do we actually have? Who are these guys? You have to put them in Munster Championship hurling to find out exactly what you have.
But what is it about Liam Sheedy in general, though? Because you might like to even just play this round robin down at the minute, you know, as a Tipperary man. Don't want people talking about you too much.
Yeah.
But what does Sheedy bring? Like, what is that effect that's sort of getting from Tipperary?
I'll sum it up in a couple of sentences. And I came across, I was at Tipp and Clare, there was 2 weeks ago down in Ennis. And the game was over. They won by whatever margin they won by. But the 12-13 subs were doing their runs out on the field after the game. And it started to lash rain 2 minutes before the game. The subs were out with the physical trainer. They were doing the runs and the lashings of rain. Liam was in the middle of them, shouting the guys on. I stayed in the stand for 10 minutes after. I was waiting for the rain to go because it went to get wet going out into the car. But the hair stood in the back of my neck because this is the Liam Sheedy I know. He was out in the middle of them guys. He knows somewhere in the rest of this year he's going to need those guys. He knows how important they are. Like, the easy thing to do there after the game is get in, get dry, go do your media work, go do your interviews, and think of the next day. Liam knew, no, the most important thing right now is going out there to these 13 players and giving them something back. And you could see the bit of bite in him. You could see he was roaring the guys on.
Yeah, and I think what he is as well is he's cute too, you know, as regards. I think he would have known that there's a really, really good player available to him as well, you know. So outside of that motivational tools that he brings, outside of the obvious emotional intelligence he has, I think he realised there's really good players. And the perception was that they were at a low ebb. So when the perception, you know, it hasn't permeated its way to a group, you have a group then that are hungry, that are refocused, reinvigorated. And it wasn't down to Michael Ryan. There's no fault to Michael Ryan. It was just the way the championship went last year. So you're going into a situation, plus the organisational ability to be able to say, you know, bring Tenio in as big sponsors, organise, you know, a fundraising drive that resources are obviously second to none. That's what seems to be from the outside. Now, I thought that might bring a certain amount of pressure as well. Plus, the whole ability to be able to skillfully manage and delegate responsibility amongst the management team. So you have a high-powered management team. You have Tommy Dunn initially in as coach. Then you have Eamon O'Shea coming in with huge kind of credibility. How do you manage the whole ability to be able to keep all those happy in a management team, delegating responsibility? Owen Kelly coming in with the freeze, Darragh Egan. You have huge kind of balance in terms of people's input, and that's a skill in itself for the manager to be able to kind of, because often you've been in situations where you've seen over the years where, you know, someone might be out of kilter in terms of their role. They might say, oh, well, geez, I was the whole skills coach. Now I'm not involved. What's my role here? And it seems to be a complete kind of merger of the whole approach in terms of just what's best for Tipperary. Like, I watched Eamon O'Shea closely against Waterford. He was the mayor, come on, Ishka, and he no hurleys in front of him, nothing at all. And Liam was in his ear all the match, you know. And another fella over the years, you might say Tommy Dunn might have his nose out of joint over, look at the relationship between Sheedy and O'Shea. But there's complete buy-in. This is from the outside, the perception from the outside, a complete buy-in from everybody in terms of their roles. And there's no demarcation lines. It's just like everybody is just rowing in one direction. You know?
That's interesting. You're talking about man managing coaches. I never would have thought of that because he's always trying to keep players happy. But you think there's a whole background team there that you need to keep on side?
It's been evident over the years. And again, just looking from afar, you know, I wouldn't have experienced myself in terms of my mayor friend, I feel like, was Dan over the years, and it was controlling Dan as much as anything else. I'm not trying to get into play, but he brought huge energy to the sideline. That was his thing, energy, and the players would have fed off that. But I think there's a huge role now for physios, for medical people in terms of message. And the whole thing is absolutely, completely choreographed now, that everybody's on point in terms of the message. You often see the Limerick situation. You have Brian Geary on one side of the field. You often see Paddy O'Brien and Brendan Murphy coming in.
Yeah.
And the messages are on point. Everyone's on point. So I think there's huge organisation and choreography involved in that.
Yeah, we're going to get into the analysis in a second, but I'm just interested in this. Like, so what about Eamon O'Shea? Because you talked about him so much in your book about how important it was for you. Like, why? Like, what did he do?
Well, he gives you the freedom, and he lets you make your own decisions. And every time that you come in contact with him, this is the most important about Eamon O'Shea. Every single time that you come in contact with Eamon O'Shea, you feel a little bit better about yourself when the conversation is over than when the conversation started. Is he telling you all the truth and all? He mightn't be. Is he telling you a few things you want to hear? Probably, yeah. But so what? He's getting the best out of his players. But you will feel $1 million leaving Eamon O'Shea and leaving his company. And you have to remember is that everyone speaks so highly of Eamon O'Shea. So do you know these new players that are on the panel now and on the team now that never had a chance? Eamon O'Shea was on a winner before he even came down because it was all positive stories.
Yeah.
So he was on a winner. All you had to do was to back up what people heard about him. And you're on a winner there. But just to go back to Liam Sheedy, I would reckon when Liam got the job, he knew 13 of his 15 starters. So last year, Tipper trying Cottle Barrett, pound for pound, best cornerback in Ireland at the minute, and has been for the last number of years. They were trying to midfield. He's cornerback now. He's shown why he's one of the best cornerbacks in the game. You have Michael Breen, was going for maybe hurler of the year in 2016, had an unbelievable year, ended up being taken off in an All-Ireland final. They were playing him corner forward last year. He's back. He's back as the main driving force as that midfield. So he's also getting his positions right. And then as Derek said, the man management skills speaks for itself.
Well, let's talk tactically about them for a second, because obviously they can do so much with their movement, and you're very impressed, particularly, Lar, about what they're doing and the freedom that's going on in the pitch as well.
Yeah, the freedom and how they can express themselves. So if you look at the Tipp and Clare game, you see Noel McGrath gets in for a goal, gets injured, but straight away he's shouting to the brother to get out around midfield.
So John just knows.
So John knows. But they have that freedom. They don't have to look around. They don't have to wait for guidance from the sideline. Straight away, everyone is trying to pick up a man. So they don't mind moving out. So a corner forward doesn't mind ending up out midfield. Yeah. They're going to spread out. And that's the freedom that they have. And that's why they're able to get into positions to get these goals.
Yeah, well, let's run the clip, because John is actually out in midfield.
Yeah.
And you want to pick it up. Like, what happens when he wins the ball in midfield?
So as you can just see here at the end of this clip there, you can see Noel McGrath is inside full, but he's covering the corner. Johnny's brother gets the ball just after a puck out and straight back out over the bar. Now, the killer for that is he trots back in to take on a corner back that's a little bit low after the goal be conceded. His man goes out, picks up a score, comes back in. So you have John McGrath coming in full of confidence, picking off another score, and you end up getting man of the match. So things like when you move around the field and you actually get onto, I won't say a loose ball, but you get a score from an unusual or a different position. You come back in feeling a lot different about yourself. It's and the cornerback doesn't want you coming back in either, because now it's
yeah.
I'm probably have to rattle on a bit there now.
No, but he's coming back in and he's buzzing there as well. Like after he has scored.
There's another couple of things in that. Noel McGrath is very comfortable corner forward. He's playing centre forward and corner forward over the years. So he's playing midfield this year because Liam has broken up, the 5 or 6 brilliant forwards. He said, I'll relocate one to the middle of the field, put him in the pocket, acting as a kind of quarterback, spreading the play all day long, but he's comfortable in the corner. And it presents a huge problem for the opposition then. Yeah. So we go back to, even if we play Tipp, how do you pin down John McGrath, Noel McGrath, Bubbles, Shamie Callan on the one day? So if you allocate man markers and Tipp know that, they'll drag you everywhere. Yeah. So with the result that even if you go back to the 7-goal Munster final, that where we lost the Munster final, we ended up with Brick Walsh, a corner back. Why? Because he was in man marking John O'Brien at the time. John O'Brien goes into the corner. So it's back to that kind of carousel, type positioning that Tipperary have done in the past. So it's very hard if you're allocated a man to pick up as an opposition manager or an opposition player. Your half forward plays a huge role to cut down the space in terms of where they can operate. And you see Kilkenny would have done that over the years in 2011 to Lara those, where Brian Hogan is the only one that perhaps sits on the edge of the D. The rest of them are allocated a man, they go everywhere with them. Yeah. And they try and take him down. And you have to have a fluidity in your backs as well as your forwards then.
Well, I'd love to pull up the tactics board and just have a look at that fluidity and the flexibility that Tipperary have.
Yeah, look, I think the general perception is that Tipperary are playing 15-on-15 hurling, hip to hip, gung-ho if you like, and the scores would back up that. But sometimes a closer inspection shows you that they're also very conscious of their defensive responsibilities, if you like, particularly with Pádraig Maher. And huge in terms of that are the role of, we'll say, Dan McCormack at left half forward, or Bonner Maher, sorry, at left half forward, and even Dan McCormack the last day at centre forward. Their role and Michael Breen's role in the middle of the field are huge in terms of being able to free Pádraig Maher back to the edge of the D at times. Now what happens the last day against Clare, if you like, that because Brendan Maher was tight to Tony Kelly, and he's coming all the way down the field with Tony Kelly, Tipperary are in a situation where it's 5 against 5, and huge roles in that. We would see Bonner coming down into the area where Diarmuid Ryan was for Clare, where Gearóid Hegarty will probably be at the weekend, and you'll have Dan McCormack coming into the area where Kyle Hayes will be coming, and Michael Breen is able to push back as well. And crucial to that happening is one of the Tipperary full forward line are wandering out into that space because they know again that they're going to be man marked. So that allows Pádraig Maher to be free. It still allows Brendan Maher to man mark, and the fluidity of approach then sees when they win their own pocket, when they win their own ball, Pádraig is back to here, they're all back up the field, and it looks, as I said, to a lot of eyes that they're playing with 6 conventional forwards. But the fact that they're buzzing all over the place, and I think people underestimate the role of Bonner, of Dan McCormack, in terms of what they bring in terms of their defensive responsibilities. Similar to Michael Breen against Cork, he tracked Seamie Harnedy, which allowed Pádraig Maher to sit back. And the last day, against Waterford, he got 6 points in play. The last day again, just tracking Colin Galvin all day, doing his hook, getting his hooks, getting his blocks, and allowing Pádraig Maher to sit back as well. Because Pádraig Maher obviously said to himself, right, I'm on Diarmuid Ryan. I'll allow him maybe to get 2 points from play, but my responsibility to the team might be better served back here. You know, that's what I'd be picking up from how Tipperary are playing. You know,
would you have those conversations with, if it's a 7th defender or somebody who's going to be free, would you have those conversations that it's okay to give up 2 points because you're going to stop 2 goals?
Well, you know, much has been made of our setup over the years. We say, like, often I'm probably people are tiresome me saying this. Sometimes we play Tadhg Burke as what we call Declan Hannon's role at the moment. So you play him with a deep half forward line in front of him. You tell him to go 50 yards with him, and Richie Hogan or any of those centre forwards that might have nipped a few points off Tadhg over the years, he becomes the responsibility of the pack. The pack being 10, 11, 12, 8 and 9, maybe one of the full forward and keeping an eye on. But no, a bit of grey area around it. A bit of a grey area around it. So to answer your question in terms of giving him instruction in terms of how far he'd go, we'd say 50 or 60 yards. But we'd also say there's a cut-off point. If he gets 2, 3 points in play, we have to make a decision on the sideline. We got to man mark him. We got to go after him, which is the debate around Tony Kelly the last few weeks, TJ Reid around the last few weeks, probably around Bubbles and those over this week. How much room can we actually give them? But crucial in that is the work rate and the positioning of the half forwards in either team.
Yeah, it's great stuff. I want to sort of move it on, lads, and talk a bit more specifically about Limerick and Shane Dowling in particular, because how, like, you know, he's so happy. I don't know if he's happy being a sub or just so content, and continuing to come on and have that right attitude to come on and make a difference is like really hard to get my head around. I'd say, Lara, that you did not like being a sub. That's such a stupid thing to say, but I'd say it was a pain in the arse to even think about being a sub.
Yeah, like, to be fair to say, like, you don't like being a sub, but it's not an accident how he comes on and how he performs. That's not just letting a guy know after 50 minutes you're coming on now. There's a lot of talk and a lot of in-depth talk there. He's coming on, and you know by way his energy that he's here to make a difference. So who see that? The people at home sitting down watching at home on the couch. The people in the stadium watch it. The Limerick people get behind it. So to have a player like that and that frame of mind that's coming on changing games, and you're still not starting him. So in his mind, somewhere along the line, he thinks that he's being passed out. But the communication there and the togetherness there is unreal. And Limerick have that a little bit better than anyone else. You have a game changer on the sideline that you're not going to start. Even though he's a very, very good free taker, he always takes the right option from play. And when he comes on, he doesn't do the greedy thing. He knows what's best for the team. To have a quality player like that, to have him at the right time of the year. So, for instance, last year when it was coming to Croke Park, these guys sometimes, if it's in a league game, if it's in the first round of a Munster Championship, they might listen to you and they might do, what the manager says, yeah, you bring them along. But sometimes you see down over the years, players think different when you go to Croke Park, and that's the one time that you need a player. And it's the manager puts all the trust in the player, going in the bus, going up to Croke Park. But when the player crosses the white line, that's when the player has full responsibility. And you're backing that player that he'll do everything that he said he was going to do all year. And Shane Dowling, fair play to him, is doing it. And he done it last year. And he was a huge part of just Limerick getting over the line.
And I think there's been a cultural shift in terms of how we perceive subs as well. You know, I remember being down UCC years ago. You know, we were playing Cork County Championship, and the father would read the examiner the next day, and he'd be after taking off. The first targeted phone call, you must have been useless. You know. I think the general perception around it has changed, not to a rugby model, but you know how many times you look at a rugby match and you see the RBS man of the match with, you know, he's after being taken off after 60 minutes or so. I think there's a more of a buy-in from the players these days in terms of finishers, starters, that whole attitude that they know their role. Right, they might be overly happy with the role, but they know they can make an impact during that role. And I think some of them actually not lean on it, but some of them actually say to themselves, you know what, the 20 minutes might actually suit me as much as getting 45, 50 minutes and be taken off. Yeah. Even in terms of their mindset. Yes. That sounds a bit selfish now in terms of an overall collaborative team approach, but I think sometimes they say to themselves, I have 20 minutes, I'm going to bust myself for 20 minutes, I'll get hooks and blocks, I can make an impact, I can make a difference. And believe it or not, some players I think operate better in a less pressurised environment of coming on. I'm not saying Dowling now because he's a pressure man, he's able to deal with pressure. But some players, in my experience, operate better under that kind of less pressurised environment of coming in with a kind of a nothing to lose attitude. Whatever I do is a bonus here.
And we'll just say on Shane Dowling there as well, and this comes from off the field stuff and comes from a player. So we know that he's good enough to start. We know that he's made huge differences when he come on. So at home in his local club, where he's working, his mum and dad at home, are you playing the weekend? No, I'm not playing. Jeez, you're not playing the weekend. He's to answer all these questions to people around him. Why are you not playing the weekend? He can only answer those questions honestly if it's being said to him honestly why he wasn't playing. So once he's one-on-one with the management team, then you can answer those questions. So you're comfortable in yourself, you're comfortable answering all those questions with people around you. Sometimes you need answers for the questions you're going to be asked by the people around you. Then you're comfortable within yourself. And then you can come and be honest then on the field of play like he has been doing.
Yeah, and I don't think we can rule out either, given the changes that Limerick have made thus far in the championship. You know, with Will O'Donoghue coming in, with Dan Morrissey being replaced last week for Diarmaid Burns not coming in the first time for Paddy O'Loughlin. You know, match 4 for us last year. Match 3 was Limerick in the Daly grounds. Now, Gillan was suspended for that game, so they had a conundrum there in terms of a free taker. So Dowling came in, ran the game. So I don't think we can rule him out being involved from the start in a game when we're not expecting to be involved as well. Limerick seem to have that, you know, that ability to be able to kind of throw a spanner in the works in terms of his involvement, you know, and I think I wouldn't rule that out either.
Yeah, well, like they also have the ability, they have that bite back now. I think we're going to look at a clip that's coming up in a second, but just the hunger that they brought to the Clare game that they probably didn't have against Cork. Yeah,
look, I was struck by, there was an interview with John Kiley after the league quarter-final against Clare, the last round of the league against Clare, where he talked about numbers and metrics and tackle counts, you know, and I think there was an article last Sunday week about their intensity levels, trying to get 5 tackles, we'd say, in a minute. So all the day, having actually measuring in terms of tackles. I know there was a reference that someone made on one of the games last week that Tipperary were trying to get 100 tackles per game. You know, so measuring the tackles. And I know people operate better, some people operate better with knowing the data, other people just like to have no information, if you like. But I think what Limerick are definitely doing is they're almost, not Barcelona-like, but when they lose the ball in their forward line, I think the intensity levels between the Cork match and the Waterford match, and again, notched up a level ahead of or with the Clare game, they obviously have set targets amongst themselves in terms of tackles, hooks, blocks. No different than any dressing room perhaps, but when you can actually bring it and measure it, you know, statistically people will tell you that the team that gets the most hooks, blocks, you know, causes the most turnovers would normally win the game. And I think Limerick are very much, right, they're an off-the-cuff team at times, but I think they're very much metric-based as well in terms of their tackle count.
When you say Barcelona, like, do you mean they're trying to get the sliotar back as quickly as possible?
Yeah, I do. And I think, I'd imagine Connacht's influence is huge there in terms of 6-a-side games, 5-a-side games, get the ball back as fast as possible, which I feel is probably evident in most inter-county training setups, if you like. You know, where you have a kind of a pressurised game where you have 5 against 5, you have to get the ball back as fast as possible, you throw it back to the opposition then, and bringing that kind of hunting impacts. And you know, people often talk about Morrissey and Hegarty and Hayes as their half-forward, but they're never really too far spread out. They're normally kind of operating fairly narrow, and they go around as a group wherever the ball is. It sounds very simple, you know, and it actually comes, and when they get it, then they're able to use it in tight, and then they spread out after they win it. But it's another thing that John Kiley referenced after the Kilkenny game this year. Said we hadn't the numbers where the ball was.
Well, let's pull up this clip and we'll get a look at what you're talking about.
Yeah, we're looking at attempts at tackle. See, Garrod Hegarty, an attempt to tackle, another attempt, that's 2, that's 3. Keane Lynch, 4. Will O'Donoghue, 5 here. Kyle Hayes, again, just throws Mikey Carney down like a rag doll, 6. 7 from Morrissey. And again, that's the point in terms of how close they're together. They're Hayes and Morrissey operating as, you know, wherever the ball is, almost like a crowd of rugby forwards, and bringing huge intensity levels to everything they've done over the field. Realising that the reason why Declan Hannon and Diarmuid Burns and these fellas can sit in the half back line no further than 55 yards is because of the work ethic, you know, adapted and employed by the Limerick sextet of forwards, and huge intensity levels. And that's where the interesting thing ahead of the weekend will be, because when Hayes, Hegarty and Morrissey come to the middle of the field, they're going to be met by Bonner, they're going to be met by Dan McCormack, and they're going to be met by maybe a new player there wing forward. You know, how will Diarmuid Burns, Declan Hannon and Dan Morrissey or Paddy O'Loughlin be able to leave Bubbles and Bonner and give them the latitude and still be able to kind of protect their full back line? So it's going to be fascinating.
Did you like stats, or like, you know, GPS stats? Did you like these tackle counts or anything like that as a player?
Not really, no. I used to like it maybe on the Tuesday night after. Maybe looking at a few of your wides or a few of your scores. And because when you're in the middle of the game, you don't really know what happens. A lot of times in games, it's actually a blur after. And then instead of watching the 70 minutes of the game, it is good to watch them as an individual when you get the clips sent you. Right. If you had 8 plays or you had 10 plays, how did I do? And how could I do a little better? And sometimes if you passed the ball sooner, or just say you took a shot on for a goal and you could have taken in another yards, and you know that 1 yard was being the yard that you needed, just say for the goalie not to save it or things. That's really what I was interested in. But on the tackle count, Liam Sheedy's big into it. Liam will come to you and he'll let you know about, you only got 1 hook in, you didn't get any block in. He'll let you know, and he'll want them upped. But I used to think of it then a different way again. Liam was big into the hooks and the blocks, so he knows. So you had to up your work rate. And work rate is the easiest thing to do in a game. It's about running from A to B as fast as you can, and it's about trying to get a hook and a block in. Trying to get scores on the board and trying to get your own score count is the hardest thing to do. But if the manager focuses on the hooks and the blocks, it takes the pressure off scoring from a forward. You actually have no pressure out. So if Liam knows that your work rate is up, your hooks and block count are up, there's no pressure to score. And what happens more often than not, you end up scoring because the pressure is off you. You didn't put the pressure on yourself to score. So you end up thinking different. And what I mean by thinking different, you're leaving your mind open to making a run from another forward that might have it. You're after making a run, you're after getting a hook and a block in. Because your work rate is up, your yards are up, and you're going to get into scoring positions, unknowns to yourself. That's one thing I've never.
How do you find players, or how do you apply like some of those stats to players, if it's GPS or tackle?
I think you have to apply it individually, really. You know your players well enough to know what works for them. You know, some of them mechanically minded. You know, I know some of our players involved in the last few years would like to know how many yards they've covered.
Oh, really?
You know, how many, you know, where they are in terms of runs made.
During the game?
Well, even half time, you know, or even a live feed, or a word in their ear from either physio, etc. that, look, they're up on so many runs made, you know, so many hooks, tackles, you know, and a word of positivity in their ear. Other times, you know, your eyes and ears act as the best source of kind of, you know, affirmation, if you like, and stats and data can be used to kind of reaffirm what you've already seen, if you like. And even from a visual point of view, in dressing rooms, you know, I would often, you know, have stats, etc., but I wouldn't put them in front of all the players, you know, in terms of, because sometimes it can become robotic or too mechanical in terms of where am I in terms of figures, you know, and I think it takes away maybe the instinctive nature of how they're feeling about something, or even a mood swing or psychological mood swing for a player is hugely important at times.
So who do we think is going to be the key matchup this weekend ahead of Limerick and Tipperary?
Yeah, well, look, we were talking about it again off camera. We were kind of saying about the permutations regards Limerick and Tipperary possibly meeting down the line.
Yeah.
And we were referring to the matchup between Cathal Barrett and Aaron Gillane. You know, Cathal plays in the right corner. Aaron Gillane plays in the right corner. So if you go on the actual layout of a programme, they won't pick up each other, if you like. But up until now, Cathal Barrett went over on Shane O'Donnell, I think, against Clare, and you know, he's picked up the danger, the perceived danger man up to now, if you like. So we're thinking that Cathal Barrett will come over to Gillane's corner. The only thing that's preventing us from thinking that we're going from every now and again is if they meet again. Yes. Will Barrett possibility, you know, will he want to get a look at him from afar first and then meet him in maybe a bigger match, if there's such thing as a bigger match, or will he want, you know, to gain a psychological advantage over him in terms of Sunday's approach?
Well, just looking at, and that's a very, very good point. So I'll think of it as a corner forward as a second. So do I want Cathal Barrett knowing anything about me Sunday? The answer is no.
Yeah.
I want him to know a little bit about me when the stakes are at the highest, because a forward has only one crack at it. So the backman, he'll want to learn Sunday. Cottle Barrett will want to know about Aaron Gillan. He'll want to know what way his movement is, what way he's turning off me, and you'll want to know more. If I was Aaron Gillan, I don't want to meet him. I want to meet him with the stakes at the highest. And in my own brain, I'm going to say, Cottle, you're only getting one crack at this. I'm not here to give you a tutorial.
Would you ever have maybe not played at your peak, if you knew that somebody was going to be marking you again in a few weeks? Like maybe not played the same way you would have played?
No, because the management straight away are going to come to you and say at half time that you're not in your game, is there something wrong here?
Yeah,
and
your,
then
your stats are
and
down.
then your stats is down. Is your GPS turned off? Is it? You know, they're going to. So you don't have that. You don't have that option. But I definitely don't want to let anything away on an all risk. I just say no risk situation.
Yeah, and the interesting one there is that what Limerick have often done is they often station Gillan at full forward. You know, we played him last year. Shamey Flanagan, we thought he'd be full forward. Shamey Flanagan goes over and Noel Connors. You know, Dowling, went in full forward. They often, you know, they played him full forward against Cork, if you like.
Yeah.
They've often, in the All-Ireland final, they played him full forward and Dahi Burke, and Shamey Flanagan went over on John Hambury. So they might put him on someone else with a view to doing something else down the line, you know, which is the, you know, often the, you know, in terms of what an intricate approach from a management, and it'll be interesting.
Yeah, well, good stuff. Wexford, Kilkenny is the other game that we're going to focus on in Wexford Park. Kilkenny's first defeat at home in the championship in 70 years. Is that's bound to rattle them a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, look, as you said, repeating what you said in terms of the, I don't know if there's anything rattled Kilkenny. You know, in terms of, you know, I think it's a very proud record. You know, I thought they were set up for it in terms of, I just felt Galway would come with a real big performance on the back of, as I said, two reasonably poor performances, and the fact they were away in Carton House the week before, it was like they lined up the game, you know, almost took the pressure off themselves in terms of the last match. I know they're not particularly unbelievably safe, but Kilkenny, I think Galway were full value for overall. So in terms of Kilkenny having to travel to Wexford, we're left with a scenario whereby if Dublin beat Galway and Wexford beat Kilkenny, Kilkenny are out of the championship, which is unusual, you know, very unusual ahead of the last round of the qualifiers or the last round of the round robin. So yeah, look, I think Galway were full value for it. Nonetheless, you'd have to have nothing but admiration for how Kilkenny just fought tooth and nail to the end, you know.
Yeah, like, and that's a very interesting. We were here on the show last week. We said who's going to pick up TJ Reid. Scored 211, scored 2-5 from play. So we hope there's someone from Wexford listening here this evening and say who's going to pick up TJ, because it was the TJ Reid show. If he's let do his own thing on the field, he's going to create these goal chances. He's going to create these chances again. I don't know, do Wexford have someone that's going to man mark him? I think we were just saying earlier on, maybe Kevin Foley is going to come back around and pick up kind of loose ball in front of him. Is it going to be enough? I don't know. They're going to have to man mark him.
Yeah, that's an interesting moment. We are going to pull up the tactics board maybe to see what Brian Cody can do to maybe avoid that if he is being man marked. But I just want to talk about Wexford for a second, because they've been pretty unlucky not to have 3 wins out of 3 at the minute. And like our producer Rob O'Hanrahan has got like some good scoring stats on Wexford that show that they're actually scoring more than they ever have in the last 5 years, despite some of the narrative around David Fitzgerald.
Yeah, and I think the narrative probably followed me around as well in terms of and the scoring stats. I was only, not that we're trying to, it's not self-indulgence here, I was only looking at our own scoring stats around 2017. I think we're up around 27.5 points, which is, you know, ironically 4 or 5 points more than even the 2004 team in Waterford. You know, I think that's the thing that's there. You know, I think sometimes, you know, a negative setup in terms of the perception around it can guise the actual fact that it's actually creating that unpredictability of attack. You know, I think a lot of the half-backs are getting forward for scores. A lot of the boys are coming from deep in terms of getting scores, and Wexford are racking up big scores. I think they're very much under the radar as well. And I think it's you have to allow for Davy's ability to read a situation in terms of, listen, I have this player A available to me, and to get the best out of player A, B, C, and D, I'm the best situation for me is to set up in this particular manner. I think no one should be overly scrutinised for doing something that he feels is the actual best for his team, if you like, you know. And I think that's you know, the whole mantra or the maxim, shackles off, go for it, etc. I think Davy is actually integrating that into the whole approach, but I think it gets lost in sometimes when the play breaks down. You know, I think it's probably not analysed as deeply perhaps as it could be.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's just a point worth mentioning on it. But the scoring stats are very high. You know, and in comparison to even, you know, Liam Dunn's term, if you like, beforehand. You know, they're way up on what they were.
Yeah, and you've picked out a clip against Galway where they had 2 like unbelievable points, just real classy points that you sort of particularly wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I think that the point to make, I suppose, is the first possession you'll see in a few minutes is actually Liam McGovern's possession with number 15 on his back. And as they break, you'll see Rory O'Connor was actually in the full forward as well, but they're 100 yards from the goal. And it's a brilliant point for Rory O'Connor, and that's in its locker. But it's the actual next clip, after the puck out comes out, you'll see the role of Kevin Foley in terms, and I saw Kilkenny or Wexford doing this against Kilkenny in the league. When they have a breeze, they're able to negotiate a situation or manipulate a situation whereby they have 6 forwards, but when the ball goes over their heads, Kevin Foley is freed up. And what happens is Aidan Nolan goes to centre forward, Lee Chin goes to full forward, and they break down. But Foley is clever enough to involve himself when the ball is around the middle of the field. He's not just sitting back on the edge of the D, not involved. And you'll see it in both clips here, and in the clip how he gets involved.
Well, let's get the clip up here right now.
Yeah, the notable thing is that Liam McGovern is the first man in possession. He passes it on to Damien Reck and Rory O'Connor 100 yards from the goal, and it's over the bar. This is what Wexford do, only 2 inside the 45. Here is the role of Kevin Foley, not just sitting on the edge of the D, taking the ball from Rory O'Connor, playing it down the line, and again, Carl Dunbar, 60 yards from the goal, nobody inside the 65 bar Conor McDonald, and it's a point. I think that's the key thing. A lot of people have this perception around the last 15 minutes against Galway that Wexford took the shackles off and just went for it. And what they do is, if you take this, we'll say in terms of, this is Kevin Foley playing as a 7th defender or as a sweeper, and they're playing with 5 forwards. The minute the puck out, the minute they score there, Carl Dunbar, what happens is Lee Chin goes to full forward, Aidan Nolan comes from midfield to centre forward, and Kevin Foley goes out to the middle of the field. So they're playing conventionally, so they set up as a 6 inside. But the minute the puck out comes over their head, Foley will come back here, there'll be one switch, and Chin will come back out here. Now that's choreographed, it's rehearsed, but it takes, the sustainability of it over a game is very difficult, because you fellas are saying, where do I need to be? And it takes, sometimes to marry that with the instinctive nature of hurling can be difficult, because fellas saying, where do I need to be? But what Foley does crucially is he involves himself. If that puck out, for instance, lands here in the middle of the field, he'll be here as opposed to right back in the edge of the D. And they go with a kind of a full press. And if it happens that the ball is hitting over their head, then he's back to help out as well. And I think that's what you'll see from Wexford.
And well, actually, I want to see now then what we're going to see from Kilkenny, because Laura, you were talking about TJ Reid possibly being man-marked.
Yeah.
And how on earth does he get free? It was very quick, Derek, to get all this in order for us. Like, so let's talk about. So let's just look at TJ Reid being man-marked.
Yeah. So what we're going to try and do, we're going to try and read TJ Reid's mind. That's a very hard thing to do. But we're going to give a go at it anyway. So
and this is TJ.
This is TJ, and we reckon he's going to be man-marked the weekend. So what TJ seems to do, I think he's going to start wing forward. I think that he's going to know that he's going to be man-marked. But what he's very, very good at, if you're prepared to man-mark TJ Reid, you better be prepared to go the distance. So his GPS, I'd love to know what it says at the end of the game, because you're going to go in a mini marathon with him, and he's going to tire you out. So he's going to bring you in. He's going to bring you in full forward, okay? And he's going to see what you're going to do. He's going to see how you're going to come in full back on him. If Kevin Foley is the spare man that's here, he doesn't mind coming out, standing beside Kevin Foley. And what he'll try and do is confuse who was on him. So which fella's going to go with him when he makes the run. He doesn't mind. But a key person in all this here is Colin Fennelly, this guy here. This guy here, as Derek has already said, is a dog in the tackle. Is putting in the hard tackles. And the very minute Colin Fennelly breaks down the ball around this area here and he gets the ball in his hand, TJ is thinking, I'm getting the pass. He got it in Croke Park in the All-Ireland Club final. He got it last Sunday. He got it the Sunday before. So he's getting it. So this man is the key man, because TJ is running off his shoulder. And we have to say, he's getting easy scores because he's predicting what his own clubman is going to do next. And
will TJ potentially go further afield as well, because he can win his own ball, right?
The last day, I could have my stats a little wrong. I think he caught 8 puck outs. So he knows when the ball comes down, they can't stop him catching the ball at the minute. So what are Wexford going to do? They have to get up high. They have to make sure they can contest the ball in the air. But if TJ is going to catch the ball, these guys have to run and jump with their hurleys and knock it away from him. That's what you have to do. But what TJ is very, very good at is coming in, protecting himself. Or if you go up to bat, he's very good to give a nice little flick of the hurley, roll up along the shaft of the hurley, and he's catching. But he's catching the ball. You have to stop him being an influence in the game. And I think Wexford are going to try and stop him on Sunday.
Who do you think is going to be the key matchup in this whole game?
Well, I think whoever matched up against TJ, but ultimately we think if Walter Welsh is fit, maybe that Walter will come back into the Kilkenny team, be matched up with Matthew O'Hanlon. Ironically, I think they were, flatmates for a long number of years in Dublin. So yeah, another interesting kind of aside to that. But on the TJ issue as well, I think what TJ will be acutely aware of this week is he scored 210 or whatever he scored last weekend. So he may look at this weekend as an opportunity to open up space for others. He may say to himself, I mightn't be as effective this weekend. Not that he's not going to be doubting himself in any way, but there may be elements of his play and his mindset this week that will say, maybe I can open up for Colin Fennelly, Ger Elward, Walter Welsh. What can I do differently? Perhaps just remember the 2016 All-Ireland semi-final replay. We were told during the week that TJ was going to be midfield with Richie Hogan. Didn't believe it until we got onto the pitch. He was saying, no way, the two won't be midfield. Michael Fennelly went in a stopping role and tied the Burka. And next minute TJ appeared in the middle of the field. So I think
Laura must have been inspired for him.
I think he'll be acutely aware of that as well. So I think that you'll see him, as Lara said, at full. You'll see him at wing forward. You'll see him at centre forward. You'll see him in front of Kevin Foley. And he's able, as Lara said, he's able to win his own ball. The Walter Welsh Matthew O'Hanlon one is an interesting one because Walter Welsh is a big loss to Kilkenny. He's a big player for Kilkenny. Open up the legs, huge winner of ball, very athletic. And very underrated in my opinion. Really, really good player. Comes very deep, 100 yards from the goal. And Matthew O'Hanlon will go with him because he has the fallback, I suppose, of having Kevin Foley back. Even if you go to the Leinster final of 2016, Matthew O'Hanlon nips 2 points off Joe Canning because he's gone 100 yards with him. Joe has gone back to help. Matthew O'Hanlon gets 2 balls thrown out to him. So I think that's where a lot of the Wexford potency comes from. Them unexpected sources. Sean Murphy getting forward for a couple of scores. Diarmuid O'Keefe, Matthew O'Hanlon even nipping a couple of scores and creating something around because they're able to go from anywhere, if you like. And that's where they're racking up the scores from that unpredictable nature. So Matthew O'Hanlon, for me, he'll have one job, and that'll be to stop Walter Welsh. It'll be interesting, TJ Reid matchup, because James Breen picked him up 2 years ago, did a brilliant job on him down in Wexford Park. He's not, he's listed amongst the subs. Will Davy spring him? Will he spring him ahead of this game, or will it be Damien Reck, or will it be, perhaps Paddy Foley to match him early, if you like? So all intriguing.
Laura, give us the Munster final and the Leinster final. Who's going to be in it?
I think it's going to be Tipp and Limerick in the Munster final, and in the Leinster final, I'm actually confused who's a chance of getting into it.
and you
can print that.
Derek, can you rescue her?
Yeah, I think Galway are going to beat. I think Galway will beat Dublin, and I think Wexford will beat Kilkenny, which I think will then allow for a Galway-Wexford Leinster final. I think Limerick might beat Tipp, which will allow for a rerun, I think, of Limerick and Tipp again in a Munster final. I think that's the way my permutations would make it in my head in terms of scoring averages and how much Cork would possibly have to make up. So I think we'll have a rerun of Limerick and Tipp in a Munster final.
Well, we'll not hold either of you to that, especially because you didn't predict the Leinster winner. That's all we have time for today. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks to our sponsor, Centra. If you have any questions for the lads, do leave a comment underneath or get us on #Corbett or #McGrath. We'll put it to them in 2 weeks' time. We'll be back before the provincial finals. See you then.